I tell people you see, especially on social media, everything's on social networks these days, very much different than my upbringing. And when you see that, you just feel like everybody's winning all the time. But the truth is, everyone's not winning all the time. I always tell people, how does it feel when you sit in the room alone? Right? That is what you need to deal with. That's what you need to face. And a lot of times we don't face those silent moments because that's what eats at us. And so it's a mental health reasoning that people need to struggle to be able to address. Because a lot of times what you see is people go out there and may cause harm to themselves. And you're like, why? They always look happy. And it's okay to say, I'm not happy. Like, I tried this and it didn't work.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when are you watching us. And thank you for being part of the Material Business family. I have a very special guest today, Cara. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are going to talk a lot about STEM and girls in STEM and how we empower this new generation of beautiful, amazing little girls and young people that want to go into this realm. So we're going to talk a lot about those things with Cara. But before we start, do you want to tell the audience who is Cara?
Yeah, I like to describe myself in 3 words: innovator, inspirator, and motivator. I spend a lot of my life now doing those 3 things, especially from working in industry. I hold a degree in chemical engineering. I also have an executive MBA degree and a host of certifications. But I spent most of my career in industry for about over 8 years doing new innovation projects across oil and gas, aerospace, and tech. So I was typically the one to do the first projects that people were trying to figure out. I just understand stuff that's hard. So I carry my innovator spirit with me every day. And when I'm not doing that, I like to write about my journey and share my journey, especially as an entrepreneur now, with my people who follow my story, to inspire them. I like to be honest about what goes on because a lot of times you see the good, but you don't see the bad. So I like to share the good and the bad of the journey. And then when I'm not doing that, I go out and motivate young girls, college students, women, whether I'm keynote speaking or I'm just in the room speaking to a group of future STEM leaders is what I call them. I like to do that. I like to share my story, my walks of life to inspire them. So that's how I describe myself as far as my top 3 things. But at heart, I'm a chemical engineer. I'm a mom of 3 daughters, a wife. Put in the work in industry. I've started as coming out of college to making my way up to C-suite very fast in companies. And now I work for myself, which is a blessing to do.
Amazing. Congratulations. It's very fulfilling when you describe it like that. And then you do so with so much easy. Like everyone is like, oh, that should be so easy to do. When someone is carrying something and you're like, oh, it is almost not heavy. And then you try it yourself, like, oh, wow.
Yeah, it's heavy.
It is heavy. So
work.
I'm glad that you mentioned that we don't really give a space for speaking about failures and how those failures are almost a shame and then you didn't achieve that. And you bring it up in such a grace that is inviting me to embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe can you share some, like a failure that you've gone through and then how you overcome that?
Yeah. I'll start here and then I'll work my way into that. The reason why I choose to share the good and the bad, mostly because mental health. I tell people you see, especially on social media, everything's on social networks these days, very much different than my upbringing. And when you see that, you just feel like everybody's winning all the time. But the truth is, everyone's not winning all the time. I always tell people, how does it feel when you sit in the room alone? Right? That is what you need to deal with. That's what you need to face. And a lot of times we don't face those silent moments because that's what eats at us. And so it's a mental health reasoning that people need to struggle to be able to address. Because a lot of times what you see is people go out there and may cause harm to themselves, and you're like, why? They always look happy. And it's okay to say, I'm not happy. Like, I tried this and it didn't work. And so for me, that's with my entrepreneurial world. I've been doing it for 5 years and I've tried billions and billions of things. And last year for my business was my year of trying as many things, and I invested in things that didn't work out, and it was very frustrating. But at the end of the day, it taught me a lot of lessons that I came back stronger and was able to make better decisions. So it's okay to talk about when you invest in something maybe wrong for your business or things that bother you, so you can really deal with them head on and move forward. Because people need to know that. It's inspiring to others, because the reality is we don't live in a perfect world. We just don't. And so to put on a perfect smile like you do, it's really unhealthy. So that's why I choose to talk about it.
That's a very good piece of advice on allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and authentic.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. Like, all of the podcasts that we've recorded in 2025, they all come back to authenticity and how we need to search for that authenticity. And that is where we really are our best selves. And then how we show up for everyone else. Without authenticity is like, I like one of the expressions I hear the other day is like, people can only fake smiles for so long, and then they can't until they can.
Yeah.
So it is this a way of, okay, yeah, I tried things, it didn't work. However, I learned. And then that is most valuable that perhaps the frustration that I experience at the moment.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I am with it. I've always, ever since corporate, my motto was to be true to myself. Like, I always want to stay true to myself because I want to sleep good at night. And so it got me in trouble. But at the same time, I felt good. And I'm all about making sure myself is prioritized and feeling good. Because you can't be good for others if you're not good for yourself. And I do a lot of impact work. And so I have to make sure that I'm being 100% me, because I have young girls looking at me as a role model. I have my peers looking at me for just advice and inspiration to help them carry on. So if I'm not my best self, it's not going to be good for me, for one. But as someone who goes out and is looked upon as a leader in a lot of different walks of life, I have to be my best self for sure. So I spend a lot of time working on me and taking downtime to take care of me.
That's very, very, very nice that you say that. And that brings, as entrepreneurs, again, this brings the fact that a lot of us think that we are alone and we take on everything ourselves and we can do it. And I just recorded one episode with a woman that's in a completely different industry. She's in the aviation, but she was in the aviation industry. Now she went on herself. And she said something that struck to me, my mind. And she said, my husband told me, aren't you the CEO? Then why are you working 18 hours? Take decisions so you make it work for you, because this is what you want. And this is like exactly what I have been observing with other entrepreneurs is we need to lead with self-leadership first.
Yeah.
Right. When people are looking up to you, what are you showing up for?
Yeah, you must definitely have to.
Yeah.
And as a CEO, especially as an entrepreneur, small business owners and things like that, it's not easy because you have so many roles to fill, especially for women. There's just no money given to us to be great. So we're working hard to get what we need to survive. And so it's just, you really have to find the balance. And that's what people really struggle with, is finding the balance in your life and your business. Especially if you're a mom, you got to find balance there. And so I see people sometimes, I'm like, man, they can work, I feel like 100 hours a week. Like they never stop working. And then I tell myself, well, that's them. But then I have to also ask myself, well, do they have children? You know, do they have the same life as me? And you can't really compare. I have like on my board in my office, I write these motivational quotes to myself to remind myself. And one of them is don't compare. You can't compare yourself to others. You can just be you and do what you can do. So if you feel like it's healthy for you to work 10 hours a week as CEO, then that's what you do for yourself. You can't really let nobody dictate how you work as a CEO, especially when they're not one. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
learning. That's what I'm learning. A lot of people will give you advice, but they're not doing anything that you're doing. Everybody's not made to be a CEO. And then people who take that walk of life are the ones who can identify the most with what that feels like. But if no one is in that position of you, they're really not the ones to give you advice. Like I know my husband's very supportive around the fact that I do so much and he offers great supportive advice, but he doesn't know what it's like to do the billion things that I do, but he helps out the best way he can. So it's about you spending that time defining what that means, your self-balance for one, but defining what you want as a CEO, what you want for yourself and taking breaks. I don't think that, I know I take a lot of good breaks when I can, but I don't think people take enough breaks. And then that leads to burnout and a whole bunch of issues. So you have to figure out how to take care of you and keep that balance. And if you don't do that for yourself as an entrepreneur, as a STEM professional in general, it's not going to be good. You're not going to feel good.
So what are some of those tips that you can give the audience? Maybe if there is someone listening to this, and what are some of those actionable things? So taking breaks is one of them clearly, but what are some of those things that work for you?
Yeah, so I do a lot of different things. One is I put my phone down. I have 3 phones, and I feel like a lot of times we're so wrapped into a world of looking at our phones all the time. And sometimes, especially like when I'm in my bed, I'm like people who like to watch reels and stuff like that. It's funny to me. That's how I take some time out. But you have to learn how to put your phone down, whether that's for 5 minutes or whether that's for a full hour. There's times where I'll take my phone and just turn it off and disconnect. And I have to remind myself to not engage with it. Another thing I do is I set my schedule as a CEO. So for me, sometimes I may not want Mondays to meet, or I find days that I don't want to meet on and I don't meet with anyone. And then I had to learn from myself because I used to do that. And then the next day, maybe come Tuesday, I'm booked for meetings from 8 to 5. Right? I'm not taking breaks. So one of my assistants taught me this lesson when she was scheduling me, and she said, when do you take breaks? I said, that's a great question. And so I learned from her how to scatter my meetings out where I start to take breaks. And so I do that for myself as the CEO. And then I plan time because I have a family for just vacations. A lot of times we don't take vacations. I have friends and like many friends at the end of the year, everyone's trying to take vacations. But you have to get better about taking vacations, not at the end of the year. For me, I like to do them per quarter. Find a way where I'm spending time with my children and my spouse, and it's actual time. I like to go to the beach. Is one of my things I like to do, just to be near the water to relax. So you have to make time to do that. And then when I'm flying, because I fly a ton, I read, like I listen to audiobooks or read. I find books that I can relate to, and I'll spend the flight either doing that or watching a movie, but I have never worked on a plane. So you have to find that time or use that time to decompress, because typically when you're traveling for business, you're about to get off that plane and do a billion things around business. And so it's about spending that time with yourself to get you physically ready to handle all of that. So those are a few things to do. I do a lot of things. I'm really big on my boundaries, balance, and self-care.
I would have loved to talk to you 10 years ago and then had that piece of advice like, girl, chillax. My son will say, take a chill pill.
Yeah.
It would have not get me into some physical things that I had, right? Like I got really sick at some point. And it is then you discover that what you were saying at the beginning. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot give that image of empowerment if you don't feel that way. You cannot give an advice on health
Mm-hmm.
if you know you have a headache. Like, how, if you're running on migraines
Yep.
like 20 years, like, how are you saying something about that? So I'm very glad to talk to you and see that you're empowering young girls
Mm-hmm.
look up for themselves.
Yeah.
Because some cultures, like, I come from Latin America, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like the lady or the woman or the mom, she's the last at everything.
Mm-hmm.
She's the last to get to eat. She's the last to get a gift. She's the last. We're always last to everything. And then we normalize that, and then we carry it with ourselves.
Yeah.
But that's not a good role model.
No, I had to, trust me, I had to relearn a lot. My mom was a single mom. I come from an underserved community. And so I had to take the foundation my mom and grandmother gave me because they taught me how to have a loving heart and how to be nice and kind to people. But I also had to learn a lot for my own daughters to raise them, to break those generational curses and be better for them. And so I had to spend a lot of time learning that it take a lot of work. It's not easy. I've been there. I've been sick. I've gained 40 pounds in 1 year just running off of adrenaline. Really. You don't know you're running off of adrenaline and all these things are happening bad to your body because you're consistently going. I tell people you feel it when you actually sit down, and that's when it hits your body hard. So you have to learn, develop great healthy habits. I may make it sound like it can be done like tomorrow, but no, it takes years of practice and spending time with yourself and identifying what boundaries mean to you. Because a lot of time you may pick up a book and read about boundaries, but you have to define what that actually means for yourself and how do you make it work in your own life. So it's a lot of work that goes behind it. But I choose, and like many people who go down this journey, you have to choose something. And I just choose to be better for myself and healthy for myself to do this. Because being an entrepreneur will make you sick. It will make you go and do a billion things throughout the year and you're not taking care of yourself. So you have to develop some type of routine.
Totally. And I guess it boils down to you give others your best self
Mm-hmm.
when you are taking care of yourself. So,
Absolutely.
like, it is a service to others. Like, some people will be like, oh, that's so selfish. And I always counter argument that is like, it's not. It is, how can you give your best self if you're not your best? And how can
Yeah.
you know what is your best self if you
Yeah.
don't know what is the best for you? So you really, coming back to what you said before, is like, you need to understand what does that mean for you. Like, today, maybe, like you said, reading a book because you're on a plane, but tomorrow is
Mm-hmm.
maybe taking a bath or
Yeah.
going to the beach, or, I don't know, waking up 30 minutes earlier to run or meditate, whatever it is that works for every one of us, which is different, right? Because we're
Yeah.
different.
You have to figure that out for yourself. But it's good to have a routine. When people say, well, I don't know, they may feel like I'm selfish sometimes. I feel like I'm the world's biggest giver, especially with the work that I do. But I do have my boundaries where I used to be like many people, yes, yes, yes. Now I'm like, no, no, no. And if people feel that you may be that way, you have to ask yourself, well, how much have this person taken from me? So these are the questions, and maybe those are not the people that need to be around you. People who need to be around you are people who want to see you win in your healthy self.
Totally.
And a lot of times we deal with people who don't mind taking from us. So we have to identify those people and who they are and start to build a boundary so that they don't. Because at the end of the day, the only person that's going to suffer is you.
Yeah, I say that a lot, and it's important to relay that message. And I always put it in a way, like, when you are sick, you can
Mm-hmm.
have all the support system, like your spouse, your children, your mom, everyone can be there with you, but nobody is going to feel what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Body is going to, feel the pain or the ache or the discomfort, the fever, whatever it is that you're going through. It's only you that know how that feels.
Yep.
So definitely it's like it should take first priority. So I'm glad that thank you for doing all that, because the next generation may have tools that took years for us to build. And
Yeah.
now we are giving them a little bit of hint. We may expedite a little bit the process.
That's what I'm doing. And I'm learning every day and working at it every day. But I do. And I feel like a lot of times their generation, I'm a millennial, but the generation behind me is the one who taught me how to do it. I always tell people I'm stuck between two generations. Like I have to value the generation before me opinions, but I also have to respect the generation behind me. I'm learning that every day, especially working with children. And I see, especially in industry, I would see how the college students behind me would come in and have this different confidence and this different way of how they were going to work. They really cared about work-life balance. I mean, in the last years, that became a big thing. And I feel like because they pushed that. And then I started just listening more. And that's when I realized that they care about their health and their well-being. And a lot of times for many, many years in industry, it was just you worked. It wasn't about that. And so I started becoming very interested in the generation behind me and their approach on that. And that's what let me know that what I was doing was not normal. It was tearing me down. I had some companies that worked like 15 projects at one time. Well, unrealistic deadlines that I had to meet. And you have to ask yourself, is that healthy? And it really changed a lot around me. Becoming an engineer changed a lot about me just in itself, because it was such a male dominant industry and I had to adjust to it. And so you go through all of that stressful environment, I kind of felt like from time to time. But at that time, before I started understanding the youth, it was the norm until they walk in and you're like, oh, this ain't normal. Like I need to prioritize myself and my health, because it's true. Like if something was to happen to you, that job posting goes up very fast. I've seen it happen with many people. And so it's like you have to start valuing yourself. It's okay to love what you do. It's okay to put the energy into what you want to put into, but you got to make space for yourself. And so I kind of learned that from the generation behind me, to be able to be a better, healthier me. And so they kind of taught me that. And then I kind of take my experience and add it to that to help mold them of how to go into these industries. And yes, be yourself, but also understand what's required. So I kind of put the two worlds together and function that way.
So is that the work that you're doing right now?
So the work that I do with my nonprofit, Black Girls Do Engineer, I've been doing it since 2019. I am building up the future pipeline of STEM leaders. And I start as young as 6 years old. And so I have developed an amazing curriculum from real life applications and principles. And I create amazing hands-on activities for girls in my program, which is a pillar of mine to do. So we're like a Saturday program. I tell people I have given up Saturdays since 2019. I've gotten better about that. But they're a Saturday program and we come together and we do futuristic hands-on STEM activities. We go on college tours. We go on company site visits. So I spend a lot of time with K through 12th grade that way. And then with college students, I join forces with my corporate partners and government entities and help them with their technical training. So I train up a lot of college students for new technical pieces as well as high school girls. So I do that as my program, but then I travel from city to city and host STEM events. So my program has such a high demand. We host on average about 30 events a year. And so I travel to those cities who don't have a chapter there, but they want this. And I go there and I create STEM engagement and activities for them to do in their city. So I do a lot of that. And then I also support educators with understanding STEM and helping their students in their schools with STEM projects. I do a billion things. That's what I do in
I
my
can see
program.
that, and I love it. It's like when I started being on my own, like I started doing this and that and that, and then people will be like, "How are you talking about leadership? Like if you're a corrosion engineer, just talk about corrosion." I'm like, "Well, we don't take good decisions in corrosion because
Mhm.
we don't know how to lead." So
Yeah.
let me tell you, it's totally relatable.
Yeah. So I do a lot. And I write books for children because I want to help them understand what STEM is. I know for like the Black and Latinx community, and we don't have always those resources to understand what STEM is. Like when students hear that word, they're like, what is that? And so really like defining what it looks like, what career paths that is they can go into, that's important. So I spend a lot of time developing resources for students to really understand what that means and how they can get there, especially if they don't have resources at their schools or in their community. They still can dream and conquer it too. So I spend a lot of time doing that.
That's amazing. Well, thank you because you're doing a huge service, and I really hope that all the newer generations that are getting there can get a little bit of that. Like I told you, I would have killed for an opportunity like that when I was a
Mhm.
kid. It's like, oh, sometimes I go to these schools nowadays, and it's like they have labs and things, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, this is so good.
Yeah. And it started with my daughter, like my eldest. I have three, but my eldest inspired me. Like it really started with her. Because I was just really just working in the industry. And I really never had a vision for my daughters to go and become STEM professionals because of all of my trials and tribulations in industry. And so I would just go to work, come home. And my eldest, she told me one day I was cooking dinner that she wanted to become a software engineer at 9 years old. And so I knew that I have to do something for not just my daughter, but also girls in the community who had that same dream. And so she's really the one who inspired me. And now she's 14 and now she wants to be a dermatologist. And so she's on track to start college this year, studying to become a dermatologist because she's going to be in school for a while. So she's starting in high school. But when I have my own daughters who now want to go into STEM, my middle child wants to go into STEM, and I always tell people my youngest is the CEO of somebody. She's 6. So I don't know. She's very on her way to lead somewhere. But when I have my own daughters who want to go into this space, and then I have in my program 80 girls, and then on average a year I reach 1,000 girls I'm serving, then that's where I say it's like I have to do something. I have to help them. It's more about them because they're more than capable, but they need someone to guide them because they don't have that. And so I have to do it now more for them because it was something I needed to do at that time because I have to. And so I spend a lot of time with them in mind to be able to continue this journey. And it's been great. I've been able to put a lot of my girls from my program into to college. So I have 100% college acceptance rate and job placement rate with college students. So we're making great leadway there. And the impact is amazing. Like from city to city, anytime I show up in the city, the events sell out. And I'm grateful for my following for that because they believe in the program. And so it's needed. And I spend a lot of time doing that. And I tell people I'm still an engineer. I'm just changing people's lives. That's the problem I'm solving. And so I put a lot of my innovation into that now.
Absolutely. Yeah, one time they asked me to define in one of the classes that I volunteer for high school as well. One of the kids asked me, "What is it? What is define engineer?" And I was like, "Just solving problems." That
Hmm.
is what we do. We solve problems, and I love
Yeah.
solving problems. And then there is a teacher that I've been working with for a couple of years. And he just laughed and he was like, "I'm sure that Monica, if she doesn't have problems, she will go and create problems so she can solve problems."
Well, we solve a lot of problems. A
Also,
lot.
to me, that's a very neat definition. And
Yeah.
it's a good, you have the biggest motivation from your own. So you mentioned that you weren't really inclined to say, hey, yeah, go for engineering because there was some hurdles that you have to jump.
Yeah. So, like, I'm a first gen college graduate. And so there was no one to say, like, this is what college looks like. Or any engineers, like, in my immediate family. There was none. Um, I knew as a little girl that I loved to learn. And I knew was going to college. That was really, I declared that like in elementary school. I spent my whole life working to achieve great grades, which I conquered that. That was my focus. It was pretty much, I need a way out and I'm getting out by school. And so I knew that was happening, but I didn't know that I was going to become a chemical engineer to my freshman year of college. I tell people I spent my whole life with people telling my mom how smart her daughter was, but no resources of what to do with her smart daughter. So I just was smart until about high school is when I fell in love with chemistry. My science teacher, Miss Chapman, she would put like balancing equations on the board and I just got it. Like it didn't matter what she threw up there. I can just balance it. And I was like, why does this make sense? Because no one else in the class seemed to like it. But me.
I love it. And you're like, am I weird or what?
And I was like, this is great. And still at that time, I wasn't thinking about it. Like I was in high school. So my focus is like I was on dance team and all this stuff. So that what my priority was. It wasn't chemistry. And so we did like a science tax test is what it was called at that time. And she was like, whoever passed this science portion of their tax test, they are exempt from our science final. And I was the only person in my class who did. And I was like, okay, I really get this science stuff. And so that's when I first got that spark for chemistry. But I went to college to become a dance major. And my aunt was like, no, you're not. And I went to my advisor, my freshman advisor, and I was like, okay, I got to figure out some degree. And so she handed me the university catalog. And she was like, what do you like to do? And I said, I love science and I just happen to be good at math. And so I told her I had to do really well and I like chemistry. And so she showed me the engineering department and I just started looking at like the different majors and I was like, I'll try this one, chemical engineering. And I still tried to be a dance minor. And she was like, no, you're not. And so I said, well, they won't let me do this dance thing. And so I started my chemical engineering degree program. And I had told myself if I passed my first two main courses, which was like thermodynamics and material energy balance, that I was going to be an engineer. And I did. And so I said, it's on from here. And I wasn't your traditional, college student. I got married very young in college. And I had two of my kids in my engineering program. So it was like trying to become an engineer and parenting and everything in between. But I set goals every semester. I was like, this is happening. And then I made friends who was similar to my circumstances, married and had kids. And we just built a sisterhood and made it out together. But I owe it to really my freshman advisor, my aunt, being able to tell me to change my degree. I don't tell my girls to not consider a hobby like such as dance because what I learned in being an engineer is you need a hobby. You need to do something that you love outside of being an engineer. So I do encourage people if you like to cook or dance to do that. But I was told not to, so I wouldn't do that to anyone. But I went into industry. I became a chemical engineer and it was a whole different world. I walked into a world that I knew nothing about. And so I was my first job, everything, I wore my heart on my sleeve. Like everything was like, oh my God, why is this happening? And I didn't want my daughter to go become it because I felt like I dealt with so many trials and tribulations. I was the only Black woman. I had always been the only Black woman in all of my roles as an engineer. It was a different culture for me, for sure. I come from an underserved community with a lot of minority groups, and I walked into a world that didn't have any. And so I had to adjust to that. I changed everything about myself, my very first job. So I used to, I wear a lot of bright colors in hair now because I couldn't be that for so many years. I went into my job with all Black hair, very short nails, all Black wardrobe. And so I really lost who I was becoming an engineer. The only thing I held on to was my passion for it. because I love to do it. I love when things would work. I love just the projects. I love everything about chemical engineering. So I was like, I'm keeping my passion, but my identity was gone. I didn't have nothing but just a corporate me. And so I didn't want my daughters to deal with that. I wanted my daughters to go be whatever they wanted to be and just live life, travel, do whatever, because I didn't want them to cry like I did. I cried a lot of tears. Spent a long time crying because I didn't have a playbook. I didn't have a playbook. It was just you showed up every day and learned something new. I didn't have anyone to guide me and say this is what it was. And so I had to figure it out on my own. And so that's why I didn't want that for them. But they found it anyway. I did see it throughout my career, young girls coming behind me, being themselves. So I feel like it's transitioning for them and that it may be a better environment and work-life balance for them than it was for me when I first started out. So I'm okay with them pursuing whatever they want to do around it now. But my first 1-2 years of industry was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally relate, being I was always the only Latino female in my
Yeah.
engineering. And I'm still, now that I am in my own, for many, many places, I'm the only woman in the room, and obviously the first and only ever Latino that talks about engineering in a CEO room. It's like, so I can totally relate. It's like sometimes you feel like you're the minority of the minority.
Yeah.
But then building up all those, I normally call them toolboxes that will help you survive and then actually thrive and then come back to yourself and then being able to have longer hair and then put earrings or all those things that we don't do because we change, like you said.
Change everything about your appearance because that's what we were told. That's what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
It was the norm. And it was like, okay, well, let me do it, I guess, until you realize that it's not okay. And I think people are very more expressive in how they look and what they wear now, but been, industry for over 8 years. And I was still dealing with the same struggles of women who came like 40 years before me. And it was just the same thing. But I still love what I did. Like, I love working on projects. I love innovating. I love changing the world. So all of that was fun for me. I just didn't understand the culture part of it. Why didn't people understand my culture and allow me to be myself? Why did I need to adjust? So that was the part I struggled with.
Totally. And I think for many of the guests that have come, that is a common struggle, is like you have to give up on you to become someone else. And up to some point it's normal because like what else? Like I bring this up a lot. Is like one of the guests that came, she said in the podcast, you don't know that you're thirsty because there is no water.
Yeah.
Shouldn't know. Like you're super thirsty, but you don't even know it because there is no one offering water to you. There is no water. So until you realize, like you said, it's like, yeah, this should be different and I deserve better. And then everyone else that is behind me should go into a different place because why we keep doing the same?
Yeah.
It's proven that it's not working because we are here today and we had to go all that way.
Yeah, and I think it's because we just thought it was the norm.
Yep.
Nobody ever said, this is not okay. We always say, I'm the only woman. Even in my program, there wasn't that many women. We're all used to that, but no one ever said, this is not okay. People are starting to say that now, that something needs to change. We need more women. It's more people on the ground doing the work to do it because we do. But from working with the young women I work with, things are going to have to change. They're just too dominant and too amazing and vocal. So they're going to come into these companies and say and demand, if you're going to get my intelligence, this is what I'm going to need. They're not going to want to be quiet in rooms. So I think there are a lot of young, amazing women that's going to do that. But there's a lot of us amazing people who've been in industry that still need that. So a lot needs to happen for sure to make women feel comfortable in this space. And I think it starts with just getting more of us in it. And so that's why I do a lot around that.
Totally amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you, because really empowering, like I said before, like I would have loved to meet you 10 years ago, and you have, what you're telling me, like listening to that. So whoever is like a parent, an uncle, whatever, pass on this to whoever is in your circle. Because yeah, it is okay to have someone saying to you that's not okay, and you need to demand what you deserve.
Yeah.
It is.
And we
It
have
is.
to be better as women about that because we work hard. We work really hard for companies. And oh my God, we do so much in companies. And so we have to be able to be valued for the work that we put in, for sure, by the people who employ us. And I've worked against around a lot of different industries. And so I've seen so much on different sides of it. And there is some great companies out there that takes really good care of their people. And I've experienced that as well. But what happened in those roles for me was that I was so used not being able to talk in rooms that when I was actually able to talk in one, I'm like, do they really want to hear what I have to say? And so then you start dealing with in what they call it, imposter syndrome. Like,
Your self-sabotage is with jumping in, right? I was like, yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, but there, and then I have like one of my amazing leaders. He's like, we want to hear what you have to say. And I'm like, really? If somebody wants to hear what I have to say. And so there is great industries and great companies out there that are understanding that everybody matters in their company and want everyone to collectively come together and innovate and do greatness in their companies. So I've experienced that too, across industries. But one thing I know is that I've always been the only Black woman. So we got a ways to go. And I think about all the pioneer women who were before me. And I'm dealing with the same stuff that they were dealing with, that they were fighting for. It's like it has to be better.
Totally. Well, time has flown. We are at the end. I told you, I warned you before. It's like
It does go by fast.
In a blink of an eye. It's like, okay, what is your last message to the audience? Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Because it is really one of my passions that younger generations don't have to go through any, or maybe not all of the things that we did. And then they are more empowered to be their true selves, and then they can be authentic, and they can be happy, and they can enjoy a good life. And
Yeah.
so that really warms my heart. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. I truly love doing this work, and I've learned so much from it, and it's been amazing because I'm seeing the results of the program now, and I get so excited about the future of STEM as a whole, as innovation, and so I'm excited about that. But if I had to add anything, it's just, for sure, everyone find some way to, for sure, prioritize you, take care of you, but also find a way to give back. Because giving back is so fulfilling in itself too, and you'll be able to learn a lot. When you step in to help other people, you'll learn that from that interaction, how much they're helping you. So always find some way, make time to give back to our youth. They are our future. They need it. They're very, very bright. They have so much in front of them to make them just amazing. So be able to pour into them because they need that for sure.
That's an amazing closure. The last thing I'm going to ask before we just finish this is, why do you think it's important that people go into this material business community? Why do you think it is? Like, as a follower yourself, like you have watched our episodes, for which I'm very thankful for. But what do you think people that are not yet following should come here and join?
Yeah, to learn and listen to other people's stories, whether it's from their walks of life and what they've done, or whether it's from a technical ability that they have. It's important to learn from others, especially as the world is evolving and shifting. And more people are telling their stories now more than ever. And so this is a great platform that allows that to happen. and with some phenomenal women that's been on here before me. And so that's a great reason I would say for sure to join.
Thank you. Thank you, Cara, very much. For all the audience, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode, and let us know how you like this. I will put all the links to Cara's beautiful work in the comments below. And thank you for showing up, and then we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you.